Welcome back to Universe Extended right here on Planning Phase Syndicate. Tonight, I know the thing says episode 4. I'll fix that. I'll fix that in a minute. It is not episode bloody 4. It is episode 5 that we are going to be discussing right here and right now. And yes, if you don't know, I'm excited. And I'm very excited, actually. I'm so excited. I've watched this episode twice. In the last 3 days. So with that being said, let me bring my co-host in, Mr. JJ, the better looking with no Giants hat, Johnson. How are you tonight, sir?
I'm doing all right, man. Yeah, I was so excited by this episode. There's so much to unpack on this one. I think the show is just getting better as the season progresses. Fantastic. I absolutely love this episode.
Yeah, this episode, hands down. And so we're going to say spoiler. If you are here, damn it, my Band-Aid's coming off. If you are here, that looks stupid on camera. If you are here and you have not watched the 5th episode, walk on out. Or stay if you don't want to have to watch it and you just want our opinion on it. I guess JJ wants to walk out too. I don't know why the hell he wants to walk out, but either which way, spoiler alert for this. Now, I'm excited because of the pure fact that inside of this show, we got to see Vader, we got to see Reva, we got to see kind of how Vader interacts with people, and then we got to, on top of that, we got to see all of the different mechanics of how Obi-Wan is kind of coming back into his element. Definitely coming back into his element compared to where he was before. So before, we had an Obi-Wan that was kind of like, I don't know what to do. I'm stuck. I have no idea what's going on. I don't get anything. and now all of a sudden, we're getting into, well, Obi-Wan is making decisions that we would go, oops. Are you sure you want to make that decision, Obi-Wan? Are you sure that's the right call? But needless to say, he's here for it and ready to go. JJ, what was, on a high level, what was your take of the whole episode?
Yeah. Really interesting. The first thing, the callback to Vader's memories when he was training with Obi-Wan Kenobi, like during the era where he was still Padawan. Just seeing that interaction between them, he's trying to teach him, and you can tell Anakin at this point is still, he's very, very talented at as a lightsaber duelist, and he's like pushing back Obi-Wan. But Obi-Wan has that experience behind him, and he's trying to teach Anakin about that experience, about, the way of the Jedi. It's not to like achieve that ultimate victory, but it's more for defense, right? Like that's the path of the Jedi, and just setting that expectation going forward for that episode, just based on that previous interaction, was great foreshadowing. I liked it a lot. It also helped kind of bridge the gap when Anakin complains to Padme during the Clone Wars movie, when he talks about how he's frustrated with Obi-Wan because he feels like he's holding him back. And I think this particular scene is what he's referencing, right? His Anakin feels like he's not recognized for his abilities to wield the lightsaber and the way that he can use the Force, and he feels that what Obi-Wan is trying to teach him is just essentially him holding him back for it, and he resents him for it. So it was absolutely great foreshadowing, and then just adding on the extra element with Reva, and yeah, great. And I'm absolutely, side note too, absolutely thrilled that they did not break canon with the Grand Inquisitor. I was really happy to see him finally back. So
yeah. Now, did you see? All right, so there's a meme that was going around, and it's got the Grand Inquisitor dressed up in like a dress shirt and pants and a tie, and
the Impractical Jokers. Yeah.
Yes, the Impractical Joker thing, where they're all like talking in Vader's headset, and they're like, okay, now tell Grieva she's the Grand Inquisitor. Go ahead, tell her that. And then also you see them all like laughing, and that, okay, hands down, that is literally like, that is the highlight of my life this week. Like, I'm dead serious. Like, I saw that and I texted everybody I knew that had watched that episode. Everybody. I posted in chat. I couldn't post it in the like on Discords because like everybody's got these spoiler warning things, and it's like I don't know who's seen this and not. Like, really, I feel like saying we're 5 episodes in. This happened 3 episodes ago. For fuck's sake, can I just tell you this? Because this meme is probably the funniest thing I've seen, hands down, in a long time. And I look at a lot. I watch a lot of TikTok. So this, like, I don't know this, and it feels like I just need a key and peel with this. That's what I feel like I need. I need a key and peel in my life that comes over and like does this for me, like puts this skit into place. Like, that's what I feel. Yep. But holy shit, man. Holy shit. So not only is Reva not dead after this episode, but neither is the Grand Inquisitor at all. And so, like, also we see the Grand Inquisitor come back, and it's like, yeah, look at me, bitches. They don't explain it. We don't understand how he's back. We just know he's here. That's all we know. We can make assumptions.
It stands to reason that even though he was impaled in the guts, they obviously missed any important organs because he came back and he seems obviously fine. And same thing with Reva at the end of the episode. She was also impaled through the stomach. She's probably going to be okay too, to have her final face off here. Whether she's going to recover in one episode, I doubt it. But she was obviously alive enough to not bleed out on the desert. So, I mean, we'll see.
How about this? Now, think about it this way too. Like, so spoiler alert. I guess I can stop saying that now. But so Vader essentially goes to her, right, and says, "You got played. You got played, player." Like, that's like that's what he's saying, is like, you got played. And we're going to get to the Vader Force ability here in just a second, because I want to discuss that, because I think that's highly important to discuss, because it's so out there compared to what we've seen for Vader. We have to have that conversation. Like, that's a full conversation just in and of itself. But Reva, he basically tells Reva she's been played, right? And it's like, all right, that's kind of fair. It's a little weird that Obi-Wan thinks she's going to be a good guy. And this is where I say, like, if I have any qualms with the episode, it's that piece. It's like, I don't want a redemption arc for Reva. I do not need that. Bad guys are sometimes bad guys. Stop pulling this little Disney card here, folks. And let's, she can just be a bad guy. Now, my theory is that she's going to go to Tatooine, right? And she's going to look for Luke, and she's going to kidnap him and hold him hostage. And they're, how many paradox shit that they're creating right now? Like, all this shit about Luke and Leia not supposed to be seen for 12 years, 20 years is just going to, it's blowing into the water now.
I don't think Reva makes it to Luke, honestly. She'll make it just as far as Darth Maul, which is the desert where they're going to bury her body. And that's probably where Maul gets buried later on too, right next to Reva.
And that would be fair. I agree with you if she never gets there. I hope there's no redemption arc. But the way I feel it is she's now going to go for revenge of some sort. And again, I don't understand this because she hasn't put 2 and 2 together that there's another child there. She just knows he's protecting something. And I don't know. I like the fact that they call her out, and basically she was one of those younglings that survived, which 100% is probable, right? I mean, and I hate to say this because I don't want to make this a whole political thing, but if you think about it, how many times in school shooting type things do kids have to fake, and they teach kids, what do you do, to not get killed, which is really disgusting that in our real life we have to actually deal with this. And it's not just something that's in a fantasy, but it makes total sense to me that she would play dead and continue to live. And I don't think she's the first person to play dead before. Yeah, that Deslin, 100%. That's a thing. Just yes, we could. I used to have a political podcast, folks. Just so you know, before this. I don't, but yes, it is a discussion point that they tell you if there's a need to do that. Yes.
Yeah, active shooter drills, like stuff
Yep.
like that. Yeah.
And I don't want to get political because I'm pretty political person outside of my X-wing line, so I don't want to alienate a bunch of people. But yes, in American society, in something that should not be controversial, like we should not allow children to be murdered. Just saying, like this seems kind of
Yeah.
logical to me, especially when the majority of the population has children. Like, do you think
Yeah.
this? I don't know. Like to me, this seems pretty. Anyway,
But bringing it back to the whole Obi-Wan trying to like collaborate or get Reba to collaborate with him to turn on to Vader and to do it. I don't think that Obi-Wan had any intention of like facing Vader at that point there, because even if he did, he was putting the lives of all the other people that were trying to escape from there on the line just so he can duel Vader with Reva's backup. I think that he purposely set her up um, so that way he can cause that infighting between Vader and Reva. Honestly,
yep. And I think this is where they don't know where to go. They didn't know where to go with it because, right, if Obi-Wan gets captured, he has to get out of it somehow. Like we could go back to a Mandalorian season 2 where Grogu gets captured, right? Not because they want him to, but because it was like part of the plot and they have to go rescue him. Obi-Wan could have been like given himself up to be captured. Well, let's be frank and tell you what happens in the Empire when you get put on one of those ships, right? We don't have a Luke to come save you. We don't have a Leia. We don't have anybody. Who's going to come save them? Like, who's out
yeah.
there? Like, Ahsoka would have to, like, all of a sudden go, hey, buddy, remember me? I'm here to save you. Which could have been really cool to, like, kind of, like, transition it, right? Like, I could see that. I could see that. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like, I feel that, like, they had to avoid that conundrum. Like,
Yeah,
they're
exactly.
treading this line, man. It's a line they're treading.
And to be fair, so far I think they've done a good job treading it, because they're still adding like fresh content without breaking the continuity too much. Like they shake it up a little bit, but not to the point that it breaks the continuity like wholly, right? Because there's still a few things you're like, okay, but yeah, no, I think that so far they've done a really good job story wise, just developing these characters with these particular events that are going on, and it's not having an affect the history of everybody else, right? Because we've seen everything that Luke has gone through for it, but when we're introduced to Leia, she's obviously a much more experienced person, and the nuances between the rebellion and the Empire by the time we meet her in episode 4, and then younger versions of herself in like Rebels, where she's very very well anti-empire at that point, and she's helping people out. So it stands to make sense that she's had this previous interaction, and how they wrote her story for it. Her drive to help people escape the empire or break away from the empire, right? But yeah, I think that there's still a lot that they could still touch upon for this particular series, or at least series similar to this, that can still help develop the characters, or at least side characters around it. Like I do want to see a little more Vader, of like what he's done during the time post Clone Wars. Like I would love to see a Vader series. I think that Hayden Christensen so far has done a phenomenal job as Darth Vader, and just wanting to see more of like behind the scenes on like what drives him, right? Like, are there moments that he hesitated, where he's a ruthless killer at one point, and then other points that he hesitates because of an old memory that comes up, right? And just seeing like how the good in him eventually gets, to the point that he actually turns on.
Help. Yeah. And I think that right there, he froze JJ, but I think that right there is a key, because we do get a redemption arc right with Anakin, but it's a very muddled redemption arc. It's definitely not the like fully fleshed out type thing that we see, you know, in other places. This arc itself is definitely something that could be a whole nother show. And I think it's interesting if we say, hey, how do we get another, you know, how do we get a Vader, you know, series, right? Like, can we get a whole breadth of things? And I think, you know, if you've read the Thrawn books, and I'm going to spoiler it here, so if you've not read the bloody Thrawn books, if you go back to the very first set, Thrawn meets Anakin before he's Vader, right? And then later on, he meets Vader. And so the second set of series, he actually meets Vader. And like, there's a whole discussion about a Skywalker, right? Because in the Thrawn world, the children that they use are called Skywalkers to help navigate the Outer Rim and all these other like foreign areas. And it's crazy because Anakin Skywalker, right? You know, like, and it's a cool way that Timothy Zahn has kind of done some things together. And I feel that he probably didn't purposely set this up, but that's a good lead in, a good setup piece for going into future discussions and future ways of bringing about things. And you can have a Vader series, especially once Ahsoka comes out. If we get Thrawn into Ahsoka, you can have a Vader series where you see kind of what happens to Vader, where he comes from, and kind of some of that interaction, because I feel that Thrawn was a big influence on Vader. And, you know, because Vader comes in the books as this hard ass. He's this like, I'm this asshole. I'm this, you know, like blah, blah, blah. And, you know, Thrawn's like, well, hold on a second. And there's a conflict, and it's an actual conflict. And Pelt basically is like, I'm gonna pit you two fuckers together because I'm too stupid to figure out that I should just stick with one of you. You know, like Pelt's, I don't know. Pelt drives me nuts as a leader. He's an inferior leader. He just, oh my god.
Gets his enjoyment from making people dance to him, right? To curry their favor to him. That's what Pelt enjoys, because if you take a look at the entire structure of the Moffs, on how they constantly screw each other over just so they can gain favor with Palpatine. Palpatine obviously enjoys that, and that's why he's constantly manipulating people with getting their favor and constantly turning people against each other, because he enjoys that. That's his way of feeling that he has the power in the Empire, right? That's how he does it. That's at least how I've interpreted based on all the books that we've had where there's been interactions with the Emperor, and seeing like the backstory of like all these mobs and stuff and how they interact with each other.
Yeah. And I wouldn't be opposed to actually getting like a Dark Plagueis, Dark Sidious like show either, to some extent. Right? I mean, that guy's pretty old. At this point, we could probably replace him with the next Palpatine. You know, ironically. Anyway, but we could probably replace him with somebody and be able to have that series too. But before we talk any more about that, I want to talk about Vader, because Vader has been very ambiguous, right? In terms of the Star Wars series and how his powers are, right? And like the title of our last show, you know, essentially was kind of like, to me, a play on words. Like when we get Rogue One, be careful to not choke on your aspirations. And then there's Vader choking somebody, and, you know, like Vader choking people. Vader chokes people. We did not see Vader choke people. We saw pure hatred and anger. Like Vader is so pissed off that Reva did not sequester Obi-Wan.
Yeah. And
to me, Vader almost knows he was being betrayed, but he's so cocky he doesn't care. And that's Anakin for you, right? That's an Anakin trait. Anakin is a cocky little shit that fucking, like, he is just a cocky asshole. Like, he's really not, I don't like, go back and watch the Clone Wars. People, like, seriously, watch the Clone Wars. Like I don't know how people like Anakin. He's just such a fucking asshole.
Yeah, but Anakin's trait is always spring the trap, right? Like he knows that there's a trap there, but he's going to go in there anyway and spring the trap because he's confident in his ability to just deal with whatever comes in, and that's exactly what he does. Yeah,
And maybe he's like Crispy. Maybe Vader and Crispy are the same person, right? Like he's just like, I'm so confident in my skills, I'm going to come into GSP Solus and just take it over. Sorry. But the raw energy that we see from Vader is just like unmatched in some of the movies that we've seen. Like, is there any other movie that we've seen where Vader has been able to not only stop a fleeting starship, but rip a fucking hole in it and drop it to the ground?
No. So
that's pretty impressive.
So a lot of people were like making comparisons to this to the Empire Strikes Back scene, right? Where he enters the hangar and he sees the Falcon take up and go out, right? So, and they're saying, why is Vader able to do that in this particular episode versus the Millennium Falcon? So right away, you got to think about the difficulty of using the Force to stop a ship that's in motion, right? If you took a look at a size comparison of this particular transport versus the Millennium Falcon, the Falcon is bigger. It also has modified engines, which can output a lot more thrust upon lifting versus this basically is a cargo hauler that they were in there that doesn't necessarily have that engine output. And then on top of that, the mass of the ship as well, right? A heavier mass ship, it's going to require a lot more force to attempt to stop, which is why Vader is able to easily stop that empty ship and basically force it down. And he still had a little bit of difficulty doing that, right? Because it was still struggling to leave, and Vader was holding him the whole time. And then finally manages to rip it down. And when the engine shut off, that's when he was able to rip the hull open from that particular ship and find that it had been empty. You're not going to see that happen with the Falcon because it's going to require a lot more effort on Vader's part to do that. And at that point, by Empire Strikes Back, Vader's a lot older and doesn't necessarily have the same stamina for
See,
that kind of.
I would disagree with you a little bit on the stamina thing. I think he does. I think the difference is the drive in the between the two, right? Like Vader walking into the hangar with Han Solo, there's no Obi-Wan in there. Obi-Wan's not in there, right? Like he has this focused desire to torture Obi-Wan right now. He is still like it's like he caught his wife cheating on him with Obi-Wan. That's what this feels like energy wise. Like he's that angry. He's like, oh, you shouldn't have been. I can't take it out on my wife because she don't exist anymore. And I'm even more angry now because she doesn't exist, blah, blah, blah. Right. And that's what this feels like is like, it's just like ultimate pure like rage. Like now I have two other things I want to interject here though. Right. One, we never see what happens to there's a pilot in that ship supposedly, because otherwise how the fuck would that ship fly away?
It could have been a droid or an automated.
Okay. The other thing is, do you think that was an illusion?
No.
They really don't allude to whether it is or it doesn't. It could have been an illusion that was created by Obi-Wan. Because I don't remember seeing that ship sitting there beforehand.
So I think it's actually one of the ships that they originally escaped from in episode 2. Remember that Leia and Obi-Wan get into a ship to escape from Reva. And later on Leia's like, well, can't you change the course or whatever? Like, no, it's fully automated. There's nothing I could do about it.
Okay.
So I think it's a similar type of ship, essentially, because it's meant for cargo, not necessarily like a transport for people.
Yep, and they hit coordinates, somebody hits take off, and they just happen to plan it exactly at the right time. Ironically enough, that Vader comes in here. But
yeah, because it stands to reason. It's a pretty big hangar, so it could fit more than one ship. So yeah, I would think so. However, whoever is manning the tractor beam on that on Vader's ISD, the Devastator, is going to get force stroke when Vader comes back.
They should, because it's like, how the fuck did that happen? Like, how did that thing just escape? Like, I mean, oh my god, I thought the same thing too. And how about this? The other thing is, we have Tala, right? I got a thermal detonator. Go without me. And it's like, why are you holding it? Why didn't you throw it?
because the stormtroopers didn't see it. She was trying to get them to come in closer so that way she can take them out.
They did kind of see it because they started to run. JJ,
No, they only ran when Riva said run because she saw the thermal detonators. Everybody else is still marching forward. So she did she still concealed it to the point right before it exploded. And then at that point, when she said run, thence when they started turning to run. I know because I had to go see that scene again to see like the timing on that.
because to me, what it feels like is a way for them to say, well, we're not going to kill off Riva right here. Because, like, if you think about it, if she just threw it and let it roll, it would have killed Riva. It would have killed Riva and a whole bunch of people.
She could have force pushed it out.
If she saw it.
Remember,
when it was rolling.
They could see things before it happened. So, I mean, it could have ended up worse.
It could have. I don't know. Like, it just, that's another one of those, like, okay, like, really? Yeah, okay. I don't know. Like, that was a silly, like, the thermal detonator type thing feels silly. Like, they could have just used any other bomb where you hit a button and it blows up, right? And then it's like, oh, we hit a button and it blows up. It solves that problem. It's a dead man switch. Call it a day.
Tala only had 5 loadout points. She couldn't find a 6th one to load the proxy mines. Okay. All right.
I hope we don't get a Tala pilot. I'll say that. I don't want.
No, that. I think that they named Tala Squadron after her. That's my belief on why they introduced her to that.
That could be that's kind of, that makes sense.
Yeah. And then seeing Leia go okay, so the whole transmission with Bail Organa like basically spilling the entire secret that they're trying to keep secret over that communicator, and then later on it gets dropped off. Like, I think Bail could have been a little more careful in encoding that message, like using code words and stuff like that, not specifically mention, hey, there's another child that's over there that Vader doesn't know about. You make sure that nobody knows that this person is exactly at this location where they can go find them at this address. Like, dude, you didn't have to say all that over the transmission. Like, come on, Bale. Come on. You're senator right now.
Yeah, like, yeah, exactly. Like, how did you live until Alderaan exploded? Because here's where, this is the big thing, right? Like, to some extent, Vader doesn't know there's another child, or there's a child, right? Like, Vader's so focused on Obi-Wan, which is kind of weird. You would think Riva would have said that, but maybe she's just so focused on her revenge piece, which I was a little surprised by. I did not call that she was actually out for revenge on Anakin. I knew she was a youngling, but I didn't think she was out for revenge on Anakin. My theory is that she was just another, like, bootlicker that was trying to, like, be top dog. And my theory is that Vader was actually training her in the ways of the Sith, right? So that she could be the next apprentice. So once he kills Pelp, she's there, because that's the rule of 2. That's how they train them. And maybe Pelp officially just kind of like said, fuck all, right? Like, maybe Pelp isn't training in the rule of 2 anymore. Maybe Pelp's just like, screw the shit. I just want to be me, and I don't want anybody else to usurp me. So he's like disregarding it. And you got to think Bane, like, for example, Bane. And this is where, oh my God, why can I not get a fucking Bane show? Fuck everybody else. I just want a Bane show. Like, that is like amazing. Like, those books, hands down, are very well written. And I want a Bane show, and I don't care what anybody says. And I think maybe we should make a fan Bane show or something. I don't know. I'm not a showmaker. If you know people that can make TV shows or animated shows or shit online, get with me. I'll help you write it, because Bane is an amazing fucking character. Just like, oh my God, like, Thrawn is my number 1. Bane is my number 2. And I do like Sith. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I like the evil piece of everything.
Yeah, absolutely. But what are your thoughts on how this is gonna end up, or particularly how the transport part is gonna resolve? Do you think that we're going to see an appearance at a fulcrum, Ahsoka fulcrum, saving the ship?
I
Because remember,
think,
she
yeah,
could
because
arrive, not reveal herself as a Jedi or as a Force user.
and only one person would know who she is.
Yeah.
So yes, because I think Fulcrum shows up in that essence in other ways. And I'm trying to remember. Here's where I'm a little fuzzy because I don't 100% remember like date timelines. But I think she's in full Fulcrum mode at this point, right?
Yes.
Like I
Yeah,
think
she is.
technically 10 years, 10 and a half years later, she's officially that piece. And
Yeah.
she's already dealt with one Inquisitor technically, which is in canon, actually.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
so yes, I do think that Fulcrum probably shows up and probably saves the day because Disney likes to tie their shows together. Um, Completely tie their shows together. So it would make sense if that happened. I would also understand if somehow that ship was able to be saved by some small segment of the rebellion. And that's kind of like the beginning of understanding that these outcrops are now becoming a major thing, right? Like
Okay.
that this network of cells is not really just a network of cells, it's now becoming a collective, right? And that's what the whole show Rebels is about. Is like everybody is these cells, and they make a big point about this. Like in fairness, this show makes a big point about that, right?
Yeah.
And again, I don't remember if Fulcrum was active before Rebels.
Yes. Yeah. Because
Was
in
she?
the
Okay.
Ahsoka book, she Bale mentions that he had another person working for him that he gave them the code name Fulcrum, and then she also takes that title as well to help,
Okay.
because that's the code name for everybody that does it. Even Callus later on in Rebels, he also assumes the code name Fulcrum because he becomes an agent to help the rebellion by providing information. So yeah, I think that would work out.
Yeah. So I could see that is a very possible viability. I could also see one of the segments show up and just kind of say, "Hey, we're here to help you," type thing. And you know, maybe this is just because I've been watching Resistance lately, and like there was a call where um Kaz calls, you know, in season one, and Kaz basically says, "Hey, we're fucking in trouble. The First Order's here. Hey Leia, we're in trouble." And she basically says, "Sorry, we don't have enough people to help you," type thing.
Yeah.
Um, but I could see the exact opposite of how the Rebel starts out being able to help. So it might not be our Fulcrum that we know and love. Um, it might be another Fulcrum agent. I don't know. I like it. I think it fits.
The Bad Batch.
Yeah. And that would kind of like, oh my god, if you give me a live action Bad Batch, fuck man, like shit, dude. Like, I mean,
That would
because
be
we
awesome,
don't
actually.
we don't know exactly what Rex has been doing. In fairness, right? Or
Yeah.
Cody. There's Rex and Cody still, and we know kind of a little bit about Rex, but we don't know about Cody.
Yeah, I would love to see Cody and Cody be like, "Hey, Obi-Wan, I'm sorry I shot at you, man, but I had a chip on my head."
Because the theory is Cody's going to show up in Bad Batch 2. So,
Yeah.
which I can't wait for. Like, I'm excited. I taught my son and I, once this show is done, we're going to watch Bad Batch over again together. So, one
Yeah,
a
that
week.
comes out this August,
Yep.
right? Yeah, that's gonna be awesome. I can't wait.
Yeah. I really like that show a lot, you know, personally. I thought it fit I think there were some slow episodes, but I thought it fit the vein of the Clone Wars
Yeah.
um in and of itself. So, all right. Well, I think we covered everything for the show. Really, there isn't much. The only question I really have is Leia's stupid little droid that they reprogrammed. You know, was not happy. It was just like a restrainer bolt on it. Like I thought that she actually reprogrammed the whole droid. Turns out she didn't. So
Was it restrained bolt? I have to look at it again because it was
it's
dark.
it's
So.
this tiny little like can looking thing. So
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's the restraining bolt, but I'm not sure. Like that's my theory is that's what that was.
Okay.
And that solves the ability for Leia to not have to kill her droid, which whatever.
I mean,
Um,
imagine her like having to make a tough decision: do I kill the bot that I love, or this monster that's now like trying to kill everybody?
Yeah, that would be a little bit better. But that's just me. But that's essentially what it was. Yeah, there you go. Deslin agrees with me. It's essentially what it was. So,
yeah.
All right. Well, I don't think there's any other major plot points we have to cover tonight. Overall, I would rank that as my favorite episode so far. Hands down, I think that's the best episode I've seen. Oh, yeah, and seeing Leia use the Force without knowing it. Yep. If that happens, I think that's pretty amazing. I am okay with that breaking a canon a little bit too. Like, I think that's a little bit okay with to break canon. So, but we'll see. We'll see. Maybe we will get it. Maybe we won't. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. We will be back next week with another amazing episode of Planning Phase Syndicate. If you are watching this because you like our universe extended discussion, join us for our podcast at 9 p.m. Eastern Central Eastern time every Sunday at 9 p.m. and where we cover X-Wing related topics, whatever's going on in the meta, training, anything that we could think of. Maybe Hootie from Owl House. We'll talk about him a little bit more next week as well. Love me some Hootie. And if you're here for the Universe Extended, we will do another episode next week. Is next week the last episode, JJ?
Yes, next week is the finale. Yep.
So
it's
all right.
From what I understand, it's a long run time of 1 hour and 33 minutes. So. All
right. You and I got to talk offline. I don't know if we want to get Crab Rock involved in this last one. So there's a possibility we might do the spoiler cast before our normal show. Yeah. If you're on our Discord, we'll make sure to let you know on Discord. That'll be our main forward communication. But there's a possibility we might get Crab Rock and we might air at 8 p.m. Here's the big issue: is I might be out of town and I don't know if I'll be back in time. So, my wife and I are working out the details this week, Monday or Tuesday. I'll let you know. So it depends because my wife might be going to Ann Arbor to visit her relatives and they want me to come on the weekend when I'm not working. So, but okay. Anyway, our goal will be to talk to Crab Rock and see if he can cast with us for the last and final episode of Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you all. We'll see you next week. We will be doing a spoiler cast next week, whether we have Crab Rock or not. It'll just depend on whether we do it before or after the show. We will fucking do one, though. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I am super excited for what the finale has. And I already have made plans to make sure my Wednesday is at home for work so that way I can watch it on my lunch hour. Thank you all. Have a good night, and we'll see you on the morrow.
See ya.